Brain Boost presents 15 Ways Intelligent People Deal with Difficult and Toxic People. Encountering toxic people is unfortunately quite common, with studies suggesting that as many as 1 in 4 people display behaviors that can be considered toxic in the workplace. These people always seem to cause unnecessary drama. They are often the driving force behind conflicts. They lower morale, and they negatively impact the emotional well-being of those who have to deal with them. Some are blissfully unaware of the negative impact they have on those around them, while others seem to derive satisfaction from creating chaos and pushing other people's buttons. The worst part is that it can be tempting to give toxic people the same treatment they give to others. Of course, this never works. They aren't capable of much self-reflection, and they usually perceive your retaliation as victimization, which means they see themselves as victims in those scenarios. Navigating these situations can be challenging, but not impossible. Here are 15 smart strategies often used by emotionally intelligent people to handle such behaviors. Number 1. Don't share secrets with gossipers. Toxic people will share deep secrets with others just to seem momentarily interesting, and they will frequently judge or gossip about people behind their backs. If you meet somebody who does this, do not be fooled into thinking that they are gossiping with you because they like you or trust you. They will just as easily betray your trust. Toxic people will often talk to you about someone, hoping that you will agree with them. Then, they will go and tell the other person what you said. This creates friction between two people, leaving the toxic person in control. This is a divisive and manipulative method for gaining friends or power in a social group. Be aware of it and don't fall into this trap. Number 2. Recognize insults. Toxic people love to insult others, and they do this in a subtle way. They will attempt to disguise insults with compliments. They will say things like, "I'd never have the confidence to wear that," or "You do well when you try." Although these may sound like kind statements, they are dropping little seeds of doubt in your mind by putting conditions on your capabilities. Learn to hear the truths behind the veil of compliments, and then ignore them. You will know you have grown when you actually laugh at what they say. But just be careful because laughing tends to make them angry. However, there are situations where ignoring the issue won't suffice or isn't appropriate. In such cases, confronting the person can be a necessary step. If you decide to confront the toxic individual, aim to do so calmly and assertively, without letting emotions take over the conversation. Use I statements to express how the comment made you feel, avoiding accusatory language that might make the person defensive. For instance, you could say, "When you said that, it made me feel undermined. Is that what you intended?" This approach leaves room for the possibility that the person was unaware of the impact of their words, but it also calls them out on their behavior. Be prepared for various reactions. Some people might apologize, others may become defensive, and some could react with hostility. Even if the confrontation doesn't lead to a significant change in their behavior, you've at least made it clear that you are aware of what they're doing, and that you're not an easy target. It's a strategy that might work well in some situations and not in others. If you feel that does not work, either ignore or consider alternative strategies mentioned in this video. Remember, it's not just about recognizing the insult, but also deciding when and how to respond. Silence can sometimes be interpreted as agreement. Number 3. Set limits. Complainers and negative people are bad news. They can drain your energy. They wallow in their problems and want others to join in so that they can feel better about themselves. People often feel pressure to listen to complainers because they don't want to be seen as insensitive or rude. But there's a fine line between lending a sympathetic ear and getting sucked into their negative emotional spiral. You can avoid this by setting limits and distancing yourself when necessary. Just think of it this way. If the complainer were smoking, would you sit there all day inhaling the secondhand smoke? Probably not. Just like you distance yourself from smoking, you should do the same with complainers. Number 4. Establish boundaries. This is the area where most people tend to sell themselves short. They feel that because they work or live with someone, they have no way to control the chaos. This couldn't be further from the truth. Once you've found your way to rise above a person, you'll begin to find their behavior more predictable and easier to understand. This will equip you to think rationally about when and where you have to put up with them and when you don't. If you let things happen naturally, you are bound to find yourself constantly embroiled in difficult conversations. But if you set boundaries and decide when and where you'll engage a difficult person, you can control much of the chaos. Number 5. Ignore in certain situations. Now, before you put this strategy to work, consider a few factors. You need to understand when and how ignoring a toxic person can be effective. A toxic individual craves attention all the time, even when it's an occasion to celebrate another person or their accomplishments. They will get loud and they will interrupt other people. That said, if you choose to ignore them, make sure there are plenty of other people around, because sometimes, if you've been submissive to the toxic person for a long time and you find yourself alone with them, then ignoring them will not work. You can only ignore toxic people when you are in public, because in public they tend to hide aggressive retaliation, so they are less likely to become angered for being ignored. It's crucial to acknowledge that toxic behavior can manifest unpredictably, regardless of the setting. Some toxic individuals may indeed lash out publicly or store their resentment for later, more dangerous retaliation. Before you decide to ignore a toxic person, assess the potential risk involved carefully. Will ignoring them diffuse the situation, or could it escalate into something more harmful? Evaluate the person's history of behavior and your relationship with them. If you feel that ignoring a toxic person poses a potential risk, then this tactic may not be the safest or most effective route to take. Instead, consider alternative strategies mentioned in this video. Number 6. Allow liars to expose themselves. Toxic people will often lie habitually, not just to others but even to themselves. They will often perform mental gymnastics to convince themselves that their lies are reality. Recounting a true event is relatively easy, but lies are actually very hard to keep up with. Keeping track of a bunch of made-up stories is difficult, and liars end up exposing themselves over time by contradicting themselves with other lies. This is a long-term strategy and may not provide immediate relief from a difficult situation. While this can often be the case, it's important to weigh the potential harm that could be done before this occurs. Lies can be incredibly damaging, not just to individual reputations, but also to the integrity of projects, organizations, or relationships. If you decide to wait for a liar to expose themselves, make sure to keep records or evidence that could be beneficial if the situation escalates into a more serious issue. Always protect yourself and those around you by taking the necessary steps to limit the impact of the liar's actions. While it may be satisfying to watch someone expose their own dishonesty, there are cases where a more proactive approach is necessary to prevent harm. Number 7. Resist pity traps. Toxic people use pity as another form of manipulation. They even make their victims feel bad for finally standing up for themselves. Intelligent people are able to recognize self-pity and the unique way that it's used by toxic people. I'm not saying that it's horrible to feel sorry for yourself at times, but what I am saying is that toxic people use self-pity as a manipulation tool to regain control. They will continue to blame others for all the issues in their life as long as there's someone willing to listen to them. Avoiding self-pitying people and refusing to justify their apathy will stop you from being sucked into their world of self-perpetuating failure. Number 8. Stand up to bullies. While most decent people will help the helpless, defend the vulnerable, and assist those who need it, toxic people prey on anybody they consider to be weak. It could be somebody who's a little shy, socially awkward, or even somebody who lacks physical prowess. Toxic people will bully and take advantage of anybody who they think won't stand up to them, which is why it's so crucial to stand up to bullies, not just for yourself, but for others around you. Standing up to bullying is perhaps the most important way of handling a toxic person. Number 9. Stay aware of emotions. You can't stop someone from pushing your buttons if you don't recognize when it's happening. Maintaining emotional distance requires awareness. Sometimes you'll find yourself in situations where you'll need to regroup and choose the best way to move forward. When it comes to dealing with a toxic person, it's very important to assess and know your emotional state. This way, if you are really on edge, you can avoid contact, rather than being pushed into a reaction that you will regret. Number 10. Focus on solutions, not problems. Toxic people are often the first to place blame when something goes wrong. They do this to free themselves from having to make any effort to right the wrong. It's very easy to hate stuff and blame people, but it's much harder to make changes. Intelligent people will dodge the power of a toxic person by looking for a solution to a problem rather than just focusing on the guilty party. When you help to make something right, whether you had anything to do with it or not, It shows that you are compassionate, protective, and loyal, and this will always beat toxic people. Number 11. Control negative self-talk. Sometimes you absorb the negativity of other people. There's nothing wrong with feeling bad about how someone is treating you, but your self-talk can either intensify the negativity or help you move past it. Negative self-talk is unrealistic, unnecessary, and self-defeating. It sends you into a downward emotional spiral that is difficult to pull out of. Make a conscious effort to avoid negative self-talk at all costs. Number 12. Spend time with loyal friends. It's important to develop a strong support network of loyal and trustworthy people. Intelligent people know that they don't have to be everybody's friend, and not everybody is deserving of their friendship. In turn, they reward their friends' loyalty and trust by showing that it works both ways. True friendship and loyalty are some of the rarest and most valuable things you will ever have in life. So don't allow this to be corrupted by toxic, negative, and untrustworthy people. Number 13. Don't waste energy on pointless conflict. Some toxic people have a need to start a conflict with anybody who is willing to accept their invitation to argue. Even worse, there is often no point in the arguments that toxic people start. There is no desire to have a healthy debate or to come to a consensus, and intelligent people are quick to recognize this. Your best response is to simply disengage or ignore the attempts altogether. Number 14. Stay goal-oriented. Toxic people can be very distracting. They can cause you to lose mental and emotional focus when they create drama or cause problems. Do your best to shake it off. Instead, keep steering things back to your goal or the problem that needs to be solved. Toxic people are many things, but most of them are not stupid. And once they realize you are unaffected by them, they will typically back off. However, some may persist in their behavior due to a lack of self-awareness. In such cases, try to minimize your interaction with them. Number 15. Remember the right to be happy. It is fully within your rights to be a happy person who associates with emotionally healthy people, regardless of whatever reasons a toxic person has for their behavior. While it's nearly impossible to ignore what others think of you, you don't have to compare yourself to others, and you can always take people's opinions with a grain of salt. This way, no matter what toxic people are thinking or doing, your self-worth comes from within. We all face the challenge of dealing with toxic people at times in our lives. These individuals seem to find a way of worming their way into people's lives, creating drama and chaos in order to manipulate others to suit their needs. But you don't have to let them ruin your life and hinder your progress. Remember, it's important to cultivate positive and supportive relationships in our lives. And while dealing with difficult people can be challenging, it's a valuable skill that can help foster healthier, happier interactions in the long run. What do you think? How do you deal with difficult and toxic people? Let us know in the comments below. Join our community by hitting that subscribe button now. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Thanks for watching.